Glenn, let's bring up another subject this time. I think the popular subject in the UFO field at the moment, in many circles, are the Galactic Federation, so-called Galactic Federation, and the many species which should have spacecraft coming to Earth. Let's address that and all the fallacies that actually are in that subject.
Well, that's true. The correct word you used is fallacy.
Yeah.
The notion of a galactic federation or empire or whatever is purely from the science fiction genre, whether it happens to be Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever. It is a fairy tale notion that there is this overlying force that governs all of the star systems and planetary bodies and civilizations throughout the cosmos. And while that may be a very nice fairy tale, it is not real manifestation and cannot be a real manifestation because it does not exemplify how and why the creative force or God or whoever, what you want to call it, has manifested these planetary bodies and civilizations and all the nature that's involved. Everything has a common foundational beginning. So, in other words, space is the womb of all creation. And in space, we find all the elements. For instance, water is one of the most common elements in space, H2O. We find the organic materials, the RNA and DNA, all the organic synthesis, and all the elements and molecules that construct life. And that life rains down onto the planet as it travels through space by the tune of tons per day, whether it's here on this planet or one on the other side of the cosmos. It is all subjected to the same basic, universal, creative principles. Nature is not chaotic. Creation is not random. It is done by specific principles in order to develop a uniformity of expression.
Yes.
And from that foundation of the universe, of a universal expression, then comes the building process of understanding, the expansion of our intellectual thinking. That doesn't mean that we have to have a head twice the size and a brain twice the size in order to become an advanced development of universal creation. That would make no sense. For instance, the species of whale, the sperm whale on planet Earth, has the largest brain on the planet. But yet that animal is restricted to its environment. It cannot crawl onto land and start building supercomputers and spaceships and everything else. So it has nothing to do with the so-called advancement of a particular species in relationship to its environment. So, concerning the Galactic Federation, if you go through the cosmos, this solar system has certain planets of development, and each one represents a certain stage of advancement. There are other solar systems where the stages are not as advanced as we are here, because they have still in development phase that is an earlier representation of our own planet as well as there are ones that are higher. So while there is what we call a planetary council that gets together and discusses certain things that are relative to each other, they do not dictate to the rest of the planets how they should think, what they should do, where they should be. This is left up to the individual as far as its own progression. As you mentioned before, you cannot take somebody out of first grade and then throw them into the operating table of the hospital to do heart surgery, and they have had none of the stages in between. that is the development of getting to that ending process where you have that skill.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing throughout the cosmos.
Yeah.
Each solar system in each planet has its own level of development in general, but then you also have to take into account that all of the people that live on that planet may also have their own individual stage of thinking and development as well. There may be a central core of uniformity upon which they start at, but they still individually, you and I and everybody else, have to go through the process of learning and understanding and experience in order to advance ourselves. And a galactic federation is a principle that is totally foreign to the people that live beyond this planet. And there are no species. There's human, humanoid, and robotic and android, which sustains the ships for which the human humanoids are piloting around and traveling around. There are no reptilians, no manta fish, no crayfish, no crocodile people, no avatar people. This 150 or 250 species concept comes from a total ignorance of how nature evolves. Since when? I mean, think about it. Reptiles have been on this planet what, for 50 million years?
Yeah,
and they're still not building 747s, and they're not building microcomputers and electronics and things like that. So this idea that these particular species can outperform the limitations of their own construct and environment is totally against natural principle.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist, because what they're telling you is that, well, it's not going to be the same, because if you go to these different planets, one is either going to be methane atmosphere, and the other one's going to be silicon based, and the other one's going to be this and this. And it shows once again that our imaginations exceed reality, because when the development of these planetary systems, solar systems and bodies come together, they come together, let's take ours for instance, 4 billion years ago. And then over 4 billion years, we have all solidified, and oceans created, and atmospheres created. Everything goes about in the same type of principle and process, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And so therefore, you are not in these foreign type of hostile conditions and trying to make life configure to what your imagination tries to project. Look at the octopus. The octopus is an extremely intelligent animal, probably one of the most intelligent in the ocean. He's still relegated to the ocean mostly. He crawls on the beach ever so often, but he ain't getting up and doing a marathon or building a car or motorcycle.
Nope.
Each environment has its thing of evolvement within its own environmental conditions.
Yeah.
And we happen to be the apex of that creative expression. We have no limitations. We can go to the oceans and the bottoms. We can go to space. We can go anywhere and do anything we want, because we have the intelligence of our own creator. And there is there's no limit to creative intelligence. So there's none to us as well.
Now, it's quite unique that we can manipulate our environment to build 3D things around us. That is so unique to the human form.
Absolutely.
It is.
And so while people may wish for this, galactic federation or force, because they are truly hoping that there will be somebody that intercedes into the negative process that is happening on our world. And you have the New Age institutions that say, oh, well, you have the age of Aquarius, or this and this calendar, or this and this, and nature's going to come and just wipe the slate clean and force everybody into the same benevolent expression. And nature would never do that, because it's completely contrary to the own principles of its creation. It cannot take you into a higher level of understanding that you are not prepared to make the step yet. Nature knows that you will eventually make the step. It does no need to force you to do it. It's already built into your entire creative intelligence.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. So, but does it make any sense to have a Galactic Federation if every civilization is at their own level, even though they have commonality of space flight? It doesn't really make any logical sense, because I think most people have the notion of Galactic Federation from our own sci-fi TV series. That is where it originated, because the hope is for an external help to our situation on Earth, and that is where it originates.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You know, because yes, the other planets, they trade with one another, they
Sure.
exchange ideas and concepts, they expose each other to their different cultures and different places.
Sure.
I mean, it's not any different than here. You get on a jetliner and you fly to Thailand, or you go to Egypt or whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that when you get to Egypt, they're standing there with 5 arms and 10 eyes, and are part of this ridiculous, absolutely obscene sci-fi imagination of what exists out there. And unfortunately, I have to say, I watched a program not too long ago where one of these reporters went to the Atacama Desert, to the observatory that's there, a very well-known observatory, and he was given a certain amount of access. And the astronomer next to him, he said to the astronomer when he was allowed to look through the telescope, he says, well, wouldn't it be interesting that while I'm looking through this telescope out there, somebody else is looking at me? And the astronomer looks at him and says, yeah, but you didn't know how many eyes or how many legs they would have and what have you. I mean, we permeate this ridiculous idea not only through science fiction, but we let it roll through academia, and we let it roll through reasonable thinking as well. Why do people find the fact that the human manifestation is so boring? People do not even know the capabilities of their own self. They do not know that they can learn a greater expression. They can learn the principles of levitation and transportation and alchemy and all kinds of other things that we have touched in ancient times, but we have not reciprocated in modern times. We really do not know who in the hell we are already, and yet we find that boring. And I can't simply understand how that can be boring, how the notion that somebody who looks like you and manifests like you and understands greater things and is willing to come and assist us, not fix our problems, but assist us and help, right? How that is such a bizarre notion, but a 5-legged, 3-headed monster coming from space is something we're willing to accept hook, line, and sinker because we just saw it yesterday on television.
Exactly. I can tell you, in one of my videos on my YouTube channel, I actually said that people need, or human beings need to understand what they really are. And that is actually what we need to do, because we are willing to accept crazy things, but we cannot accept what we truly are. And we are capable of so many things, which we have not discovered yet.
As I said in my new book, when I had that conference in the southwestern United States with those 4 scientists, very well-known fellow. One of them has passed away, so I can mention his name, Eugene Kubelenko. But the other one is still around, and he's retired, one of the top scientists in his field in that facility. And we had a conversation at his house, and he says to me, he says, people have no concept of what a magnificent creation they are. He says, think about this. Tie up 2 of your fingers and don't use them, and try to manipulate the same things you do now with only 3-fingered claw. He says you can't do it. No lobster is crawling out of the ocean and starting to build stuff too, and starting to make all this technology either. He says we have no concept, we don't want to recognize what an unbelievable manifestation we are. He says to me, I said to him, I said, Dr. S, I agree with you 100%, and I've been saying it for years. And he says, if you think that our monsters are coming from other planets and other worlds, you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
And I said, I know. And that's what I tell the people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We are an amazing construct, and we are at the top of the pyramid at the moment. If anything better will be created by the universe, I'm sure it will. But at the moment, we are in a unique creation, actually.
I think what we have to understand is that further development comes from inside.
Yeah, definitely.
Not from outside.
No,
right?
from understanding, I think.
Right. So like when you watch Star Trek and they have the Borg who grabs people and turns them into machines and drills them in the eye so they can have this and or have a claw or this, nobody stops and thinks and says, how is that more functional than what you already had?
How is that an improvement?
Yeah, how is that an upgrade? How is that an improvement? And so basically what happens is refinement is a total encompassing persona. When we think refined, we become more refined on the outside as well.
Yeah.
We are not, and the psychology of that's very clear. If you look at hardened criminals and you look at their pictures, you can see the harshness and the savageness within the face and the eyes of that person, because that is the total consumption of that person's mind's expression.
Yeah.
But yet you take another person who is refined and works on refinement, the refinement of thinking, the refinement of dance or expression or whatever, and you see an entirely different person from the one I previously mentioned. You could look at it and say, well, they're human beings, but from that, but otherwise, there's really no comparison between the other. And so refinement throughout the cosmos comes from expression and not from the outside, because the finer you express, the finer you will automatically look from the outside as well. And so that's why this Galactic Federation is just another fantasy fairy tale construct in order to try to give people this sense of inclusion, of safety. And they don't, and it takes away from the fact that the hard work has to be done by yourself. It is not done for you, and it is not imposed upon you. That will never be.
No. It never has been, never will be. That would not be conducive to your development. Not at all. Right. So, Glenn, thank you for this little subject we covered here, and thanks for that.